What's particularly interesting about our tasting today is we've got, obviously we've got all the very grand appellations and lots of exciting Grand Crus and Premier Crus from Gevrey-Chambertin, Maurice Saint-Denis. But I think what's really pleasing for us is that we've got some of the lesser, we would say lesser appellations, perhaps the less known is a better way of saying it. So appellations like Marange, like Fissain, which have been in the shadows of other appellations over the last 25 years. But in recent years, thanks to the new generation of winemakers that are coming up, really making some terrific wines. If we take Fissain, for example, which if you go back far enough was an appellation of great reputation. It's an appellation that has been forgotten about really for the last 20 years. But we have Amélie Berthaud, who took over from her father in 2013, and in a matter of 2 years she's already turned around the domain and, if you like, put Fissain back on the map single-handedly. It's interesting talking to her. She credits Arnaud Mortet, who's based in Gevrey-Chambertin, as being the star of Fissain because he has some vineyards there. But as he's based in Gevrey, we consider him as a Gevreyite. So I think someone like her, who Fissain is the vineyards that her father had. This is what she has to work with. She's come in with this really fresh approach to get a finer quality of tannin, to really work the soil. She sees the potential in Fissain, perhaps that those with less ambition haven't seen recently, and she's just making great wines. And because of Fissain being in the shadows for a while, prices are still terrific. They compare very favourably with Maurice Saint-Denis, Gevrey-Chambertin for the moment. And the rapport qualité-prix is just terrific. Marange is another one at the opposite end of the Côte d'Or. To me, it seems really strange when you drive around Marange why it isn't better known. You're 2 miles from Chassaing-Montrachet, so just next door. The vineyards look terrific. The main Premier Cru vineyard of Marange is a wonderful slope, perfectly exposed, some old vines, some really good mixes of soil. So there's great potential there, and again, it's just a new generation coming in and trying to make slightly more ambitious wines, playing more on the fruit, getting the quality of tannins better again, making wines, Pinots that people actually want to drink. I think you have to be careful that you don't try and make something that's trying to be something else. So for instance, a Fissain is not, or a Marange is not necessarily a wine that you should try and make to keep for 30 years, but what you want to do is emphasize the fruit, and that is what I think someone like Bertrand Bachelet is here today. He's very much doing, keeping the new oak down, getting a lot of juiciness into his wine through his vinification, and making wines that sommeliers want to put on their wine list within about 18 months of being bottled. And these are the sorts of wines at those kind of prices that will stop people turning towards Australia and New Zealand for their versions of Pinot Noir. And personally, I think these are much more interesting. The other factor, of course, could be with appellations like Saint-Romain, Auxey-Duresses, some of the Bourgogne Haute-Côte de Nuits that we see in the Haute-Côte de Beaunes. As the temperatures have gone up over the last few years, we don't know if that's a temporary thing, but if it isn't, we may see it continue. But the wines are just getting a little bit more richness there. Because of their natural austerity, they're maintaining this lovely freshness and bite, but they're then getting this added richness of fruit. So they're suddenly becoming really interesting as well. And I think it's been highlighted by this vintage 2015, which is a very rich fruit-driven vintage. And when we've been putting the offer together this year, we've almost had to turn everything on its head. So all the appellations we might forget about, suddenly all the ones we want to talk about. Auxey-Duresses Premier Cru Red from Topinot-Merme is a wine that normally is a bit reticent in the glass, needs a bit of time. And it's just jumping out of the glass, full of delicious sort of red fruits. It's terrific. So warm conditions, whilst not always a good thing, for certain appellations they can be really helpful.